Well, I will kind of turn it over to Tony Hagan and David Skaggs with AgriVive, and they will kind of go through what the results or what they're seeing from 2024 and before on the Seed2Rumen.
Tony Hagan, I'm here with David Skaggs, our dairy project manager. Share the screen on some of the stuff we've been doing for early adopter. Uh, we're seeing some significant increases in revenues. In the 2024 early adopter program, we came across with a 3-to-1 ROI, 12-cent a day average cost per cow with a 36-cent per day more milk. This is an increase in both milk per acre as well as some of the components. This is from the fermentation of the direct from the field. This is not softened starches. We're waiting for those numbers to come back in July. They're actually going to be published. This is leading to a new measurement regime that a producer can send in his or her TMRs. If you've got 4 different total mixed rations, you can send those total mixed rations in to find out what your energy corrected milk is anticipated to be based on microbial biomass, protein, and energy balance for both fast pool and slow pool analysis through Fermentrix. Will help give your nutritionists a little bit better idea of how to use the higher digestible feeds. So additional farm income per acre was $206.46. For every 40-acre packet, it was $8,258 ROI. Manufacturer's suggested retail price is $3,800 per packet with an $8,258 return for the 2024 season. This is not something that has to rely on carbon credits. This is something that's based on profitability on the farm. The carbon credits or carbon intensity score improvements are just a side bonus. But as we're marketing this out, we have to market it based on carbon benefit, because if you are going to use this just straight up ROI, it's like putting in no-till before you get a contract for carbon. You can never go back and recapture that carbon. So unfortunately, we have to mention the carbon piece, even though this is all basically based on profitability. This is per county, increases in milk per acre. This takes into account the additional ROI based on tonnage as well as the anticipated pounds of milk per ton. This is absolutely a profitability play. And my assumption is it won't take the government long to figure out you would use it just because you're going to make more money rather than the carbon. This 15% less enteric methane is what's going to get you your carbon intensity and potentially get you your premium pricing in milk. There is a program through Fonterra that has some premium pricing for milk built in. This is where your carbon intensity piece gets you additional monies. This is to pay for programs like Bovaer and other feed additives. This money here, this is what you want to get. You want to be able to claim that you used the product because of carbon, not just because it made you an extra 3-to-1 ROI, because you want to be able to capture this additional money coming from your processor. These programs are being rolled out globally on the 1st of June. They'll have a lot more information on how to get it. But from what we've seen so far, just changes in the field do not get you that maximum 25 cents. You have to do something in the animal to be able to get that. And right now, that looks like it's going to be Bovaer as a feed additive until July when our product becomes part of this equation. You guys have any questions on this? This is a new one and it's a big deal. To get 15 to 25 cents per hundredweight additional milk value by being one of the early adopters for carbon intensity is going to be huge for a producer.
Yeah, well,
So 25 cents per hundred on top of the additional milk revenue from just more production. Is that
Yes,
how I'm understanding this? And
correct.
for a product that's effectively costing 13 cents per cow per day.
Correct. So we've had a lot of people talking about this on ROI, and it's one of those, the only people who wouldn't use it are the ones who don't like money, is what we're getting from the accountants. But if they use this before they get into a carbon program, they lose the ability to get into that program. So they want to become part of this carbon piece as quickly as they can after June 1. So as soon as it hits their P&L statement, they have implemented the program. So as soon as it hits your P&L, you're able to send your ration into Fermentrix to find out what your reduction is. And we're working with the on-farm evaluators to be able to integrate this into your farm CI score. Any questions on the carbon piece? Because this is really the last I'm kind of going to talk about it. The rest of it is all how you maximize profitability on the farm. All right, let's move on to how you maximize your profitability on the farm. The ruminant products that AgriVive Biologicals has impact the plants at the production phase. One of the side effects of the use of our product is an increase in photosynthesis. We upregulate photosynthesis, downregulate photorespiration. When your plant can no longer accept a photon of light to make sugars, it still gets hit with that photon of light and it eats some of the sugars that it created, called photorespiration. In photosynthesis, a beam of light hits the chlorophyll and runs through photosynthetic cycle and kicks out a sugar. When the light hits it and it's no longer able to make sugar, it actually consumes those sugars through photorespiration, and it makes the plant consume part of what it created. That's why we're seeing additional growth, and depending on the variety, we're getting to maturity slightly faster. So by being able to capture more of those energy units, those heat units that are hitting the plant, we're able to keep the pH inside the plant acidic in the range of photosynthesis. That's how we improve the photosynthetic rate. By increasing the photosynthetic rate, by modulating the pH, the unintended consequence of that was I created a selective media inside the plant that promotes acidifiers and downregulates methanogens. So what that did as an unintended consequence is we opened additional fermentative pathways in the animal by having those microbes already in the plant. Those microbes existed in your soil, so when you reapply your manure to the soil from your dairy operation, those bugs exist in your soil. We just make it easier for them to get into the plant. So every bite of feed has a better microbiome to support milk production. So we've created a more digestible feed by reducing the amount of lignin, increasing the starches and sugars to give your animal a better feed efficiency. So by having more starch, more energy in the corn silage, we've actually seen that you can reduce the amount of starch that you add. So we averaged from 2022 to 2024, 2 pounds of corn added to the ration per day per animal. By reducing that, it's about $60 an animal per year that you've reduced in additional starch you had to add by having a better digestible forage. That's your initial savings in the animal. You've had to add less additional high cost starch into the diet because it's already there in your corn silage. Any questions on this piece?
Tony, if I may, you're pulling less corn from the grain bin because you're pulling more food out of the bin.
Correct. So less corn out of the bin has to go into that ration because your corn silage was of higher value. And now let's go to the microbiome in the animal. So treated versus untreated. On the treated animals, we had fewer methanogens. So think of a methanogen like a weevil in your corn bin. That methanogen is going to seal 16% of the energy that cow took in every bite. By reducing the number of methanogens, I've reduced that 16% of your bin loss down to 8. Questions on this one? This is really important. All right, I did a better job explaining that than I thought I usually do. So with fewer methanogens per bite, your energy balance goes into milk and beef production. So you've lost less energy. So for every 100 calories she consumes, approximately 16 of them get stolen by those methanogens and burped out as lost revenue. By reducing the number of methanogens per bite, she's only losing 8 to 12 of those calories. So it's instant savings. Instantly goes to more milk. This is the next important one. Ciliate protozoa. These little guys are what help to digest the fiber. So by keeping it in photosynthesis and not photorespiration, we've increased the amount of digestible fibers. So not only did we increase them, we've also increased the bacteria that convert those into milk. So gave you more digestible fiber, and I gave you more helpers in the rumen to help digest it. This is where the starch reduction really comes into play. On the methanogen side, less of it went into lost energy. And on the fiber side, more of it came out because not only did I give you better fiber to digest, I also gave you more of the helpers to digest it. Any questions on this part? Awesome. Okay, so this is further genomic sequencing. These are treated animals. These are untreated animals. Everywhere you see a white or yellow section in this untreated side, those are lost fermentative pathways. On the treated side, remember when I said you're pulling more of those good fermenters out of the soil that you added with your manure? This is where you have added additional fermentative pathways. You have six, sorry, I keep clicking on it. You have 6 additional fermentative pathways in the treated that you do not have in the untreated. So what we did is we took 10 animals, had them treated and habituated, and untreated. We pulled their rumen liquid out and we sequenced everything in there, trying to figure out what we were changing. Why were we seeing more milk production than your lab analysis from Cumberland, Dairyland, Rock River said you should? If it said you're supposed to get 1.3, why were we getting 4? This is why. We have opened up additional fermentative pathways and we've made the fiber more digestible. Questions on this? This is straight profitability. This goes right to milk. Wow, doing better than I thought. So now we've explained how it works in the rumen, how it changes per bite nutrient density. We are seeing a change in the enteric methane produced all the way into pasture animals. We've done this on corn, small grain, alfalfa, and range grass. We've also looked at the manure. So we have a 10% reduction in total gas, 18% reduction in methane, 21% reduction in CO2. This is something that will be made available to producers anticipating fall of 2025. You'll be able to send in a frozen manure fecal sample into the laboratory, and they will be able to tell you what your off-gassing is to help reduce your carbon intensity even further.
So Tony, when you, Tim here, so when you send that, you will send that in, do you have to send it in after so many tons or so many acres? So for every 40 acres or 100 acres, how often should you pull samples in and send it in?
So this is where the RCPP program comes in through NRCS. We are partnered as a provider in the RCPP. Let's go all the way up to the top. Section 592 is an NRCS program that your producers are going to want to apply for next October. We'll have an online form and we will be providing technical service personnel to help you fill this form out. This is to feed the ration that you grew this year. So you grow it in the 2025 season, you apply for NRCS program for 2026. This feed management program allows you to file a monthly form that will include your CI score reduction from enteric methane, as well as your measured reduction in metric tons of CO2e. This value comes from a lab analysis of your rations. If you have 4 rations on your farm, once a quarter or once you make a significant change to that ration, you will send a sample in for analytics. That sample will tell you how many grams per kilogram of dry matter intake, CO2e, you will have per ration. You know how many tons of dry matter intake you had and how many pounds of dry matter intake for each of the 4 rations versus how many pounds of milk production you have, and it will give you this as a number once a month. You don't necessarily want the money from the 592 program. You want the ability to submit this form. Questions on that? That's a weird suggestion. All right, so let me go through how this is derived. You have a baseline that you will create. Most of the programs want to see 2018. So we will help you through a technical service provider nutritionist how you will pull these. This will be an online form that you will fill out. This is the form for implementation through the NRCS, as well as a feed management plan. If you use the AgriVive products to 85% of your ration of the corn, haylage, or alfalfa, you get to use a rumen liquid donor that has been fed our material. That should give you an automatic 15 to 30% reduction in enteric methane. As soon as you have it on your profit and loss statement, you can begin to send those samples in and utilize that rumen liquid donor. Because you have implemented the program by paying for it and applying it to the plant, you don't have to be feeding it to the animal yet. You can send your analysis in of your current ration and use the rumen liquid donor to get that benefit immediately. Questions on that? And that's how it stands right now on March 31st. That is what we have been told as of today, that you are allowed, once it hits your P&L and you've proven you've implemented it, you can begin to send your rations in July 1 to get that reduction in enteric methane CI score to give to your processor.
So Tony, there's a question there. How much would that be?
The analysis cost?
Corey, what are you talking about?
Just like how much are they looking at for being able to get money back on this program, I guess, through the government?
So from the government side, you're looking at $93 an animal, but you're capped at $200,000 per operation. So it's not the money you want out of this program. It's the ability to file this form with the NRCS as a signed federal document. This is what you use to get that premium pricing from Nestle and those guys that are coming out this year. So you could get paid for it. My recommendation that we've been having so far is you apply for one animal to get $93 in order to be able to file this paperwork. So somebody like Ophion or any of those sales groups could then take this form as a third-party audited, filed with the feds form to be able to market your credits or your CI score for premium pricing. So it's not about the money from the feds as much as it is the ability to get an audited form. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So these two pages are what NRCS needs. Basic information, as well as what the programs and practices will do. But as a portion of this application, you have to make a feed management, create and submit a feed management plan. This is the piece we will work with your nutritionist for as a technical service provider to get this filled out. So the first portion is using our material in order to be able to use that rumen liquid donor. The other interventions are things like kernel processing score, silage packing techniques, seed selection, TMR component selection, TMR mixing, sizing, push-up timings. The big one that we've found right now is animal welfare can be added to this as well. So using a stray voltage or a better watering system or adequate airflow, anything that boosts your milk production will change your CI score. It won't necessarily change your carbon tonnage, but the more milk you produce with the same amount of ration, that increases your carbon intensity score. So those animal welfare things are being added to this form right now. So other feed additives, Rumensin. In the US, we can use Rumensin. Remember when I said I would reduce the number of methanogens coming in per bite? Rumensin will kill off a larger portion of what's left. So 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 and 1 we've seen equal up to 5. So Rumensin, because it kills the bugs before they're able to steal your calories per bite, has a different impact than 3-NOP or Seed2Rumen ruminate, who allows the bug to eat that calorie and steal it from your milk production. It just belches it out as a different gas than methane. So Rumensin is a different type of intervention. Rumensin plus a higher digestibility feed will give you a bigger reaction than either one by themselves. But a 3-NOP or Seed2Rumen, ruminate, Agolin, all of these others change the pathway after that bug has stolen your calorie of energy from milk. It just burps it into something less detrimental to somebody else. So they would rather see it burped out as some other hydrogen sink than methane. Questions on this one? This one's a really big deal.
What's the name of this form again?
Could you repeat the question?
What is the name of this form for my notes?
Oh, so it's Equip Program 592. So right now, the only technical service provider in the whole country is John Gazer in Wisconsin. We have 60 additional technical service providers signing up under AgroVive for technical service providers tied to this automated form system online. So come July, when the program takes effect and NRCS comes full circle on it, we should have 60 different people that can help you with your form fill out. So let me go to how it works. You have 4 standard rations at this farm. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You tell it what breed you have. If you have dairy beef on, average animal weight by category. This is still required because we still run the same Farm ES program to validate your results coming off the real world to show that you did better than normal to be able to do this. So you take your dry matter intake. This one is annual, but you would take your dry matter intake versus your milk in pounds, and this would give you what your carbon intensity is. So you know exactly how many tons of dry matter intake you had per pen or per ration. This farm actually has per pen diagnostics. We include this one in there because it's the hardest one you would have to do. In all reality, all you have to do is have your complete tons of dry matter intake by ration and your milk, and it can give you that first page number. So for every ration you have, 1 through 4, you would send it into the Fermentrix lab to find out how many grams per kilogram fed CO2e you have. This is an untreated rumen liquid donor. This is a treated rumen liquid donor. Using the AgroVive products to change that donor is instant savings, both in increased milk validation as well as CO2e. This helps your helps your carbon intensity score as soon as you send this in July with this on your profit and loss statement. So even if you miss the ability to put it in the ground this year for corn, if you pre-buy for next year, July 1, we will send you the chopper inoculant with the product in it so you can make the claims immediately. So you can get your carbon intensity boost to take advantage of that June 1 announcement from Nestle. You'll be somewhere in that 10 to 25 cent range. Questions on this? All right, let me show you one of the lab analysis. I apologize. This is going to give you a little bit of a headache, producers, zipping down through this. This is really important to show what the analysis will help you with your nutritionist. So you'll have an untreated analysis. We'll give you how much methane is produced in 3-hour to 6-hour increments. This is your fast pool versus your slow pool. This will help your nutritionist figure out where you have this little dip in here. Can I do something with my ration to make this more efficient? This is a treated rumen liquid donor with the same exact ration. Your differential analysis will show you where you had changes and where you had improvements. So there's your propionate production. You have a nice, even, gradual increase. You don't have that loss in the second half of your fast pool. So by being able to digest the fiber more efficiently coming across, you not only don't have the dip, but you also have a reduction in methane coming out of your fiber. This is something your nutritionist will find very valuable. This is an analytic for the ration that helps them tweak it. Questions on this differential piece? All right, microbial biomass protein. This is the energy production in microbial biomass. This is a conversion of your ration into what will be digested through the rest of the animal's digestive tract. You had an increase in microbial biomass production. This is where that milk that we couldn't explain on the standard forage analysis, this is where you get to document what happens with that improved microbiome. The additional 6 pathways, that's what created this. This is your CO2e. This is your methane emissions plus your CO2 in grams per kilogram of dry matter intake. This is your CI score and your reduction in per farm tons of carbon. This is what somebody like Authian can sell for you once you have that signed document.
Are these forms standardized across the industry?
So there is no standardization until we do this. So as part of the RCPP through NRCS, we have been asked to create this. We have been asked to create the standardized form that will be used across the US. This is the beginning of that standardized form. We've also been asked to create the feed management conservation practice scenarios. This is what NRCS will use to determine if you use the project and the codes correctly. So we are also writing these draft scenarios as part of that RCPP. So we have been asked to create this standardization across the industry. Any questions on how bad it was for them to pick me to create these standardized forms?
So is there a place that someone could go to be trained in all of this so that other than the people that you're bringing on, so as Yield Master Solutions, Newfields Ag, as we're selling this product, um, we probably should have some basic knowledge in how to go through these things. Is there some type of training or certification or anything that someone could go to and go through?
There will be trainings, but to be an NRCS technical service provider, you have to have 4 years of experience in feed management on a farm or be a certified nutritionist.
Okay.
So they're making it kind of hard for Practice 592 to be able to provide technical service. So the nutritionists in your area will want to get certified for this after July 1. They'll have a class, I believe, the 17th of July for becoming one of these technical service providers. You just need to be ready by October when they start to apply for 26. But this will be an online form that any producer can get in and look at. And there will be, let me go back up to the top. There will be on this form, there's a checklist. There will be a little information button after each one of these things that they can click on, and it will tell you why. So they'll be able to go through this form with their nutritionist if they choose to. So a farm would actually have an account on the software platform that will do this training.
Okay. So as we've gotten the brochure from Tim. Is there out of all of this detail that you've gone through with us this morning, is there a summary sheet of some type that's been put together that summarizes what you've done today?
Not until USDA certifies it July 1. So
Okay.
this is early information. This is insider info that you can share with your dairies. Right now, Nestle does not want to pay a premium over 50%. So the top 50% of CI scores is what they're going to focus on. If you're in the top 50% of your milk shed for production, so let's pick on Valley Queen. For the top 50% of Valley Queen producers, they're willing to give a premium. The top 10 and 20% of that milk shed, which is what that CPG buys, they're willing to pay more. And that would be across all of the processors. They're going to target the processors they buy from up to the amount that they do buy from them. So you want to be in that top 10 to 20%. And from discussions we've had so far, just on the farm changes are not going to do it. It will get you into the top 50, but it will not get you into the top 10 to 20. No one knows what those final requirements will look like for reductions, but from what we've found online, it's going to be greater than a 30% reduction in your enteric, which is going to require like a Rumensin and hours, or Rumensin plus every single one of these changes, including animal welfare, which is not in this draft. So you'll have to do better water, better ventilation to get your milk production numbers up without impacting negatively the amount of dry matter intake you have to have. The fastest and easiest way you can get that first bump is first off Rumensin, making the daily decision to use something like that, something similar, generic or standard, and the rumen liquid donor. Those two things are the low-hanging fruit. But no one knows for sure until that rolls out in June and gets certified in July what those final requirements will be. But from what we've seen, it's a 30% reduction in enteric on top of the things you do in the field for reducing your fertility need. Did that help?
Yeah, yeah. We just, in order to sell this, we're going to have to be educated in it, a little bit better, yeah, than what we currently are. Yep.
Yep. So you guys are going to want the nutritionists on board. The nutritionists are the ones that are going to help you sell this. Agronomically, with the price of the product, it's hard to sell as a seed product. This needs to be an animal health, welfare, and profitability on the dairy piece. You also want to make sure that the dairy is the one that has it on their P&L, and if they don't grow the product, they provide it to the people that do. It needs to show up on the P&L of the dairy in order for them to take advantage of the CI score. If this goes to the person who raises the crops, the dairy just loses out, unfortunately. Let me go through how it impacts on the dairy. So on milk production, your form from Rock River, Dairyland, Cumberland is going to show about a 2% increase in milk per day. This is a 1.3 pounds per day increase. That does not include that microbial biomass number from the microbiome, because these in 2022 were only sent to the standard forage labs. We included no premium in this from Nestle yet because we don't know what that program looks like. So in 2022, we had an increase of $111 worth of milk. This number is the increase in silage value if you grew it yourself. In 2022, we only had half of the dairies grow it themselves, so they still paid per ton coming off the field. So we got no benefit from their accountants. This $60.39 was the reduction in starch needed in the TMR. This is your savings in corn. In 2022, at $95 an acre, the cost was 17 cents per animal to do the alfalfa, the small grain, and the corn. So total cost per animal on a Holstein and Jersey mixed herds in South Dakota was $62.05. So the reduction in corn offset all but $1.66 of the cost of product. The accountants gave us a $9.75 per animal savings because there were less acres needed to feed that animal, and the cost of custom cutting and all of the other basic costs of production, this is where they gave us that benefit. This was the reduction in rent, the reduction in cost because they were charged per acre, not by the ton. This $9.75 saving was South Dakota. Now, manure management, they gave us nothing because we needed more data in 2022 than we had. $4.38 per animal was thanks to the dairy in Brookings County, because we did a side-by-side rye trial and we did not tell them to segregate the bales. So we got charged $4.38 because every time they hit a new bale, they'd lose 4 to 6 pounds of milk, because an untreated bale and a treated bale were not differentiated in the pile. When they would hit a treated bale of the rye, it would go up 4 to 6 pounds. When they would hit an untreated, they would lose that 4 to 6 pounds. And it took them months to figure out it was because we hadn't differentiated the bales. So I had to pay for the nutritionist to go out there a lot to figure that out. It took him months to get this figured out. It was ugly, because if you lose 4 to 6 pounds of milk a day, it's a big deal. And you did nothing to change your ration, so something must be going on in the herd. So this was my penalty for causing that stress. So net ROI that they had on the farm after withdrawals, the extra milk, the reduction in corn, brought them an extra $115 per animal. It was a 17.7% increase in net ROI on the animal or on the farm per animal. Average in South Dakota for this segment was 2,954 animals per herd for a net on-farm adjustment of $340,000 net. This is why people are going to use it without the carbon, and I am concerned that the carbon value might be stolen for tonnage, but left for carbon intensity. Because what farmer wouldn't do this? Questions on this form? So this is why the nutritionist is a better salesman for this than a seed guy, because the nutritionist is the one who can show them this value. And I'm sorry, guys, from the seed side, the value is this. That $9.75 in the yield increase, reduction in costs of hauling, and the $95 an acre you would have gotten in additional silage. The true value is in the cow. That's where you're going to need to partner with the nutritionist to make this happen.
Compensation differ between milk and beef?
So the beef comes up with about an 11 to 12% increase.
Okay.
So you retain that same amount of energy. It's just a poorer energy conversion to beef than it is to milk. It's a more rapid energy conversion into a milk. So on the beef side, if you put this on the pasture, you're going to get an increase in grass. So we've seen an 11% standard increase in carry capacity on the pasture. So you can now have an 11% increased carry capacity because you're not allowed to build any more CAFOs. Best way to increase your herd numbers is increase the carry capacity on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So you've increased your carry capacity in grass. You've caused the stock cow to increase their milk production 4 to 7% by volume. That calf is now being able to drink more. You have a 4% increase in butter fat and a 4% increase in protein, which means that calf is going to put weight on faster because it's per hour of suckle, it's getting more protein and more butter fat, as well as a larger volume per suckle. So your beef side, you want to put this on as a grass product. This is grazed rumen, and it is a foliar application once a year for the grasses. Then when you pull that animal off and you throw it into a confinement, the corn silage value is going to put the meat on faster. So every day you can get them to market weight, and every day you can save a ration going into that animal is straight profitability. By getting this increase in digestibility and the decrease in total extra cost starch, this translates into your animal as well. So the increase in weight.
Plus your turns are faster.
Yep, your turns are just faster on a dairy cow, but it's still that same boost into an animal. You're looking at probably a 10 to 12 rather than a 17.
Okay.
And as the business model evolves around highly efficient rations, this goes up close to a 37 in how you establish contracts with your producers, how you change your rotation into dairy beef or beef on dairy, because you're now making more milk. This can now go into, on long-term analysis, how many replacement heifers do you have to have? You know, if you don't reduce your herd numbers, you want to maximize your herd numbers. Other things can be taken into account to give you beef on dairy. Can you change your preg rate into getting a longer lactation or an additional lactation? That's something they'll have to see on a herd to herd basis. This is where the nutritionist becomes critical. There's things that they can pull out of that data for herd information to make those optimizing decisions possible.
So Tony, we set this meeting for an hour, so if they shut us off at 12, that's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just to let you know that.
Okay. Any questions, or have we kind of covered stuff well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tony, you said there's a lot of this will be coming available later on this summer.
Yes.
Okay.
So the guys that want that top 10 to 20% need to put this in the ground now as a seed coat to hedge against the carbon piece further down. The fact that they can walk away without that, with a 17% increase in ROI, it would behoove them to do it for the ROI to be able to participate in the programs a year early. Any other questions? I think this is most of what I wanted to talk about.
I appreciate that, Tony. You're stepping through this and a lot of stuff yet to come on this.
Yeah.
So one quick last piece before it shuts us off. There is a promotion. Our company is having a portion of the company bought by one of the packaging groups. They're buying ownership in our company. They are giving a $20 an acre bonus. So instead of it being 95, there's a $20 bonus that people can take if they buy it this spring. So instead of 95, it's 75 MSRP on the corn product.
On the corn product. Yep, and that's on the planter box.
Yep.
Yep.
So they have a 30 or a 20% reduction that they have to meet the first of the year, and they want to use our product to hedge if Bovaer does not get the federal funding that it was promised. If Bovaer doesn't get the federal funding, it's not going to be adopted well enough for them to meet their KPI goal of 20% reduction. So what they want to do is for 150,000 acres in the U.S., they will give us $20 per acre to reduce that price. So anyone who buys that up to the 150,000 acre mark, which is what meets their KPI for the processor or for the packager, they will give $20 an acre to help get this moved forward. Any questions?
Any other questions? Lauren, do you have any questions? Mr. Wisconsin?
Yeah, no questions at the time being. I guess I really wish some of my dairymen would have been on for this because they would have definitely known what you were talking about and been able to pull that, use that information, because I know that a couple of these guys actually are capturing methane and that too on some of these farms for resale too. So I mean, they're definitely on the front edge of programs like that.
All right, so a quick statement about the methane production, guys. Everyone says, oh, well, if this is going to do that, it would reduce the methane coming out of my digester. If you inoculate your digester with methanogenic bacteria, we've seen up to a 40% increase in methane production because the very specific foods the methanogen eats are retained in the manure coming out of the animal because of this. So they're getting higher methane production out of the digester when you inoculate with methanogens.
10-4.
Because that has been a question from almost every producer that has a digester. Is it going to reduce my methane coming off my digester? If it is, I'm not going to use it. We've actually seen up to a 40% increase in production. You just add methanogens in like an inoculant like you do a prebiotic or a probiotic, to your methane digester, and it overcomes the reduced numbers in the poop. And that digester had a 40% boost in production. It was awesome. They were very, very pleased.
So Tony, if somebody doesn't, one of the salespeople isn't aware of a nutritionist in their area, what would be the easiest way for them to tie into some? Just ask the dairyman who they're using, or is there a better way of doing that?
Always ask the dairyman who they're using and have them get hold of me. You never want to come between that relationship with the nutritionist and the dairyman.
Right.
Dairymen change nutritionists like they change their underwear, and the guys hold on to their really good nutritionists well. But I would talk to any one of them, and I would help them get set up on that 592 as a nutritionist for their dairies as well.
Any other questions? A lot of stuff Tony went through in 60 minutes. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tim.
You bet.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Have a good rest of the day.